Good evening. Thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business, and I'm Paul Graney. Investing legend Michael Burry says we might see hyperinflation. What'll that mean for your pocket? President Biden revises the CCP virus aid program for small businesses, but some are asking why half of his relief package is going to non-pandemic related issues. And New York City decides to keep both Trump ice rinks open after all, at least until the end of the season. That and more coming up on NTD Business. The Federal Aviation Administration is issuing an emergency directive. It requires certain Boeing aircraft to be inspected immediately after the engine on a Boeing 737 failed near Denver. Now, the UK has banned those types of planes with the same engines from entering its airspace.
U.S. flight regulators have ordered further investigation into Boeing planes after a United Airlines flight using a Pratt & Whitney engine emergency landed over the weekend. The 26-year-old Boeing 777 shed debris over Denver on Saturday after its right engine, a P&W 4000, failed mid-flight. United Airlines and Japan have grounded all Boeing 777s with the Pratt & Whitney engine until further notice. A video on social media captured a cloud of black smoke trailing the Honolulu-bound aircraft on Saturday, shortly after it departed Denver International Airport. There were 231 passengers and 10 crew on board. United said the plane returned safely to the airport without any reported injuries, but debris scattered the city of Broomfield, Colorado, Saturday afternoon. The Pratt & Whitney engine has grounded several flights over the last few years. Japan's transport ministry said that early last December, a Boeing 777 returned to its departure point after its left engine failed. And in 2018, another Honolulu-bound flight experienced engine failure 30 minutes after departure. That incident prompted a U.S. FAA investigation into the P&W 4000 engines a year later. According to the FAA, United is the only U.S. airline using the Boeing 777s. Boeing said its tech team is supporting U.S. regulators with its current investigation. Pratt & Whitney was not available for immediate comment.
Never a dull day for Boeing. In market news, S&P 500 and the Nasdaq closed lower today. The Dow rose a little bit, rose about 27 points, 0.09%. S&P 500 lost 30 points, 0.77%. The Nasdaq dropped 341 points, or 2.46%. 10-year Treasury yields were up at 1.37% today. It's on track for the largest monthly gain in 3 years. All eyes now on Jerome Powell, the Fed chair. He'll be speaking before Congress this week. Rising concerns about inflation. Investors looking for maybe any sign that change in the central bank's policy. We'll have more on inflation in just a moment. Bitcoin tumbled earlier today after surging to a new record Sunday. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says it's, quote, extremely inefficient way to conduct monetary transactions. Now it is back to around $54,000 though. Like I mentioned, are we going to see hyperinflation? The price of goods and services skyrocket and the value of your dollars just disintegrate? Well, Michael Burry, the guy who spotted and made a fortune off the 2008 mortgage crisis, says more stimulus could make hyperinflation happen. He compared today's financial activity to Weimar Germany just before the price of goods there skyrocketed. George Gammon from the Rebel Capitalist show has been warning about this for a long time. Asked him if we might see something here like what happened in Germany.
Yeah, well, anything's possible, that's for sure. It's just a matter of probabilities. And there's a lot of people out there that are far smarter than I am that have been in the deflationist camp. The first that would come to mind would be Dr. Lacey Hunt. And pretty much all of them are consistent on when they're asked the question, what would it take for you to go from the deflation camp over to the inflation camp? And it's basically when you're merging the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. So that's the first step of MMT. When the Federal Reserve is taking bank reserves, which they can create just, with the electronic keyboard, when you're turning bank reserves into legal tender, that's when you go from deflation to potentially hyperinflation, because then you have something called Gresham's law that tends to set in. And I'm just echoing statements from Dr. Lacey Hunt. And so what happens is when the government starts spending money directly into existence, and you don't have necessarily a need for taxes, or you don't have a need for bonds, what this does is it allows the government to directly create money supply. We call it M2 money supply, or broad money. So that's just more currency units in the real economy chasing the same amount of goods and services. Typically, government spending or deficit spending wouldn't require this, because through taxation or selling bonds, they're extracting liquidity from the system, and then they're just reallocating pretty much the same liquidity. But in this case, they're creating newly formed liquidity, and they can direct that at any special group or insider.
And this direct injection of currency, are we seeing this already, or is this something you're fearing? Where exactly?
Well, if you look at M2 money supply, and there's a lot of people that argue that's inaccurate, but we'll assume for the sake of this conversation that it's accurate. So that's broad money. That's the amount of currency units in the real economy chasing those goods and services. We've seen, especially in 2020, the Fed's balance sheet, or the amount of bank reserves they're creating, go just straight up, go parabolic, while at the same time, M2 money supply goes parabolic. So what that's telling you is the Fed is monetizing the debt. So instead of the government issuing treasuries and the general population buying those treasuries, therefore they're sucking liquidity out of the system, the primary dealer banks, through kind of a shell game that's rather complicated, but they basically buy the treasuries and then just flip them to the Fed. And the Fed is buying these treasuries with newly created bank reserves. So you see the Fed's balance sheet go straight up because they're creating these new bank reserves, while at the same time, the M2 money supply is going parabolic as well. So again, that's telling you that they're monetizing the debt, because you're not seeing that liquidity extracted and then reallocated. You're just seeing the liquidity, or the amount of currency units, go straight up. See, so that's when you know that effectively they've merged the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury to where the government is now basically spending money, or additional money, currency, into existence. And it's being facilitated by the Fed buying those treasuries basically directly from the government.
It's an incredible situation to find ourselves, even to be discussing something this extreme. George, really appreciate the insights. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And Michael Burry will be happy to hear the House Budget Committee approved the $1.9 trillion relief bill today. That's President Biden's relief bill. The full House of Representatives hopes to pass the bill later this week. Democrats trying to pass the bill by March 14th. That's when the enhanced unemployment benefits expire. Just happens to be St. Patrick's Day as well. Any coincidence? They're trying to push the bill through a process called budget reconciliation. In that case, they won't need any Republican support at all. Who needs it? The bill includes direct aid to small businesses, $1,400 stimulus checks, pretty nice, and an increase in the child tax credit, state and local aid, as well as the controversial $15 minimum wage. This version of the bill may not be the final version that gets passed. The Senate still has to decide whether to keep the minimum wage hike. Some Democrat senators there not very happy with it. Don't want to bankrupt their small businesses. And President Biden announced changes to the small business loan program today. He says it'll make it easier for business owners who were left out of previous aid rounds to get relief. What type of businesses are they? NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
President Biden is expanding access to the small business loan program. He announced the changes Monday.
On Wednesday, the Small Business Administration is going to establish a 14-day exclusive PPP loan application period for businesses and nonprofits with fewer than 20 employees.
Small business bankers say there's less demand for the loans now that firms are reopening. Biden's also opening it up to more people who couldn't apply before.
We're making it so that a student loan default or a non-fraud related criminal record does not prohibit someone from applying for the program.
Biden openly challenged critics as he urged Congress to pass his nearly $2 trillion relief bill.
Now, critics say the plan is too big. Let me ask them a rhetorical question. What would you have me cut? What would you leave out?
A non-profit think tank says that nearly half of the House's relief bill was being diverted to issues unrelated to pandemic relief. Biden's changes also aim to make it easier for businesses without any employees to get aid.
We're also making it easier for those one-person businesses, like the home repair contractors, beauticians, small independent retailers, to secure forgivable PPP loans.
The White House says it's improving the program's operations by strengthening fraud checks and communicating more with both borrowers and lenders. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And a California lawmaker is facing backlash for saying he doesn't want any small businesses that can't afford to pay $15 an hour. He says he thinks that's a fair amount. NTD's Tom Ozimek reports.
California Democrat Ro Khanna told CNN Sunday that he thinks most successful small businesses can pay a $15 minimum wage. CNN's Abby Phillip asked how it would affect mom-and-pop businesses that are already struggling. He said, "We don't want low-wage businesses. And I love small businesses, I'm all for it, but I don't want small businesses that are underpaying employees." His remarks come as President Biden and many Democrats support more than doubling the current minimum wage over the next 4 years. Republicans and some moderate Democrats fear the move would cost jobs. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says boosting it to $15 an hour by 2025 would cost 1.4 million jobs over 4 years. At the same time, it would raise wages for around 27 million people, and it would lift 900,000 people above the poverty line. Advocates argue that raising salaries will boost purchasing power, and the added spending will lift the economy. Opponents say it will hurt businesses and lead to higher unemployment. Tom Ozimek, NTD News.
California doesn't really know if it wants gig workers either. Are Uber drivers employees or contractors? That debate's been going on for a while. Now it looks like the Biden administration wants to get involved too, nationwide. It's just pulled Trump-era guidance that made it hard for gig workers to unionize. Many gig workers aren't actually happy about Biden's move. I talked to Wayne Weingarten about it. He has a new report for the Pacific Institute Research Institute on how gig workers help the broader economy.
The gig economy is well beyond just Uber and Lyft and Airbnb. There's companies like Fiverr where you can actually, if you're a web designer, you can put your services out there and companies will then kind of hire those services. Well, again, you're not an employee of the company, you're an independent entrepreneur, and the benefits that the gig economy can create comes from that kind of that interaction. So the more that we pin it down as a traditional work environment, we lose a lot of the benefits. I mean, to me, I think one of the most ironic things, one of the things we worry about a great deal right now is work-life balance, right? Especially parents with children. We need to be able to control kind of when we work, especially if you're the primary caregiver. Well, the gig economy gives a parent who's a primary caregiver an amazing opportunity to set their own hours, right? So you can work when it's convenient for you, but you're there for your children, for whatever the needs are. I mean, that's the exact work-life balance that we talk about, that we say we need. And the gig economy is still in its infancy, but it gives us those opportunities, and we don't want to lose those opportunities by regulating it out of existence.
In your new report, I believe you found that the gig economy, it can help the overall economy through innovation, through entrepreneurship, these types of things. Of course, any leader would want their right. economy to be stronger, but we see through different people accusing the Biden administration of trying to regulate it, doing this and doing that, to benefit the unions somehow. The Competitive Enterprise Institute have a new article about it. Is there some truth here, or what's happening?
Yeah, you have to remember, outside of the government, right, membership in unions have been going down for many decades. I believe it's less than 7% now of the labor force outside of government is actually in a union. And so they're looking for any way to maintain that relevance. And the gig economy is a threat to that. The more people kind of move out of traditional employment and become, individual entrepreneurs, and you're losing all of those kind of opportunities to unionize, which of course their strength is in numbers. The fewer people who are in unions, the less influence they have. So they want these people as potential members, not as entrepreneurs working on their own. So they definitely want to kind of castigate these people into their realm. But you have to remember, like the surveys show, more than 2/3, 70% of gig workers are gig workers by choice, and they're happy with that arrangement. So the vast majority of people are doing what they want to do. And so if you're going to make sure that if you force them to be categorized as a worker, you're actually making them, by their own judgment, worse off.
Yeah. Typical government intervention, never without its downsides, that's for sure. Mr. Weingarten.
It's all about, yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And New York City is backtracking on the mayor's plan to close 2 Trump-owned ice rinks. Would have impacted over 200 city employees. Now the city's letting them finish out the season. So kind. NTD's Phil Zoe has more from Central Park.
We're here in Central Park, where 2 of the Trump-operated ice skating rinks is located. New York City was planning to shut both of them down over the weekend, but in a surprise turn of events, they're now keeping them open instead.
The city reversed the decision Sunday, saying New York City kids deserve all the time on the ice they can get this year. But just over the weekend, the ice rinks were supposed to shut down 1 month earlier than expected.
Devastated.
What do you tell your kids?
Skating should not be part of politics.
Skaters said it didn't make sense to close the ice rinks just because they were connected to the Trump name.
No, it didn't make sense because we only had 5 or 6 weeks left.
Shutting down the rink isn't going to really hurt him. It's hurting all of the employees and all of the skaters who come here and depend on the rink.
A group of local skaters then started an online petition which got thousands of signatures overnight. Many are glad the ice rinks will remain open, at least for the season.
I think it's good. They look like they're having fun.
Everybody just wanted the season to finish. And
such a happy moment for all of us, knowing that this place is going to stay open for just like 5 more weeks.
It's a good day for the rink in general.
The Trump organization has operated the ice rinks for more than 30 years. If the city gets its way, Trump will also stop operating the Central Park Carousel and a golf course in the Bronx.
The mayor's office said, quote, "Make no mistake, we will not be doing business with the Trump organization moving forward." Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
Politics. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that it won't stop a grand jury from obtaining former President Trump's tax returns and other financial records. The justices rejected Trump's request to put an October 7th lower court ruling on hold. Now, the New York grand jury will be able to obtain the records and look at them in secret. Sure, no leaks. But the possibility of leaks to legacy media can't be ruled out. The court issued a single-sentence ruling Monday reading the application for a stay presented to Justice Breyer and referred to the court is denied. The justices did not provide an explanation. Trump's accounting firm has said it is not contesting the subpoena and will comply with the legal obligations. Politics. And still to come, utility bills skyrocket in Texas. What would you do if you were charged over $5,000 for just 5 days of service? And Kroger warns customers that their personal data may have been hacked. Find out if it affects you in just a minute.
Trends may be fleeting, but values are timeless. We now bring you this new clothing brand with classic design and luxurious comfort. It's our way of sharing hope and inspiration from the world of Shenyun. We bring you Shenyun Dancer. Wear it with honor.
Texans may be through the worst of the weather, but some who didn't lose power face sky-high utility bills. The governor, though, says it isn't right. Utilities can't stick customers with huge bills after the storm.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced a temporary ban on electric bills Sunday. He says they'll use the time to find a way to protect utility customers. It comes after many Texans were charged thousands of dollars for electricity during the frigid temperatures. One man told Dallas News he was charged over $5,000 for just 5 days. Senator Cruz writes, no power company should get a windfall because of a natural disaster, and Texans shouldn't get hammered by ridiculous rate increases for last week's energy debacle. And San Antonio's mayor agrees.
It would be unconscionable for bills to go up and for bills to be put on the backs of residents of the state that have been suffering and freezing their homes for the last week through no fault of their own.
He says it was a failure by the state's energy management and they should be held accountable.
As far as I'm concerned, that bill should be sent to ERCOT, and there will be hell to pay if there is any notion that the residents of this state should pay for this disaster.
Some Texas providers sell energy at prices that rise with demand, which skyrocketed last week. Another challenge is the food and water shortage. Politicians on both sides are chipping in to help. Progressive Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweets, "We just hit $5 million raised for Texans across the state." Former San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro says they raised $400,000. Former presidential hopeful Beto O'Rourke says they're going door to door again on Monday to help people with food and water. And crews delivered water after returning from Cancun. All power plants were back online this weekend, and power's been restored to most homes. The White House says President Biden will visit Texas in the near future, possibly as soon as this week.
And Kroger says some customer data from its pharmacy and clinic may have been stolen as part of a massive cybersecurity breach. Kroger thinks hackers may have gotten their hands on social security numbers, and they likely viewed the personal data of those using its health and money services, along with some current and former employees. Kroger thinks less than 1% of its customers were affected. It says the breach did not affect Kroger's stores' IT systems or other parts of its grocery stores. It says it's notifying people who may have been impacted and offering free credit reporting. And more than half of UK employers plan to recruit in the next 3 months, suggesting maybe unemployment may be close to its peak there. According to new research, at least. NTD's Joy Duguid brings us more.
According to human resources body, the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development and recruitment firm Adecco, is the first positive signs for employment prospects in a year. About 56% of 2,000 firms surveyed indicated they are looking to recruit in the first quarter of this year. That's up from 53% in the previous quarter. Sectors with strong hiring intentions include healthcare, finance and insurance. The survey also shows that the number of firms planning to make redundancies in the first quarter dropped from 30% to 20% compared with the last quarter. For the hospitality sector, only 36% employers plan to hire more staff, while 27% say they are prepared to reduce their headcount further. The survey says employer confidence may be increasing due to some factors, including the Brexit trade agreement, the extension of the job retention scheme, and the anticipation of economic recovery. The UK's latest official unemployment rate between last September and November is 5%. CIPD senior advisor says these findings suggest the unemployment may even undershoot official forecasts. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
Still to come this evening. Forget 5G. Apple's already working on the next generation 6G. It's hiring engineers to help it get it to the forefront of new network technologies. And is this too good to be true? A website wants to pay you to sleep at a luxury resort? Well, find out the details in just a minute.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Apple just launched its first iPhones with 5G wireless speeds a few months ago, but it's already working on 6G. And when that comes out, it's expected to be up to 100 times faster than 5G. Apple's posted job ads for engineers in Silicon Valley and San Diego offices, which focus on advanced wireless technology. While 6G probably won't be ready until 2030, Apple seems to want to be at the forefront of the next generation. Apple still hasn't added 5G capability to devices like the Apple Watch, the iPad. It still says iPhones that use older 4G technology. This could be your dream job. Actually get paid for sleeping at a 5-star luxury resort. A website called Sleep Standards is looking for a candidate willing to spend 5 nights sleeping in different environments. The candidate will have to write a report on their sleep experience each night, including at the 5-star resort. The company researches sleep quality products and is planning to pay the chosen candidate $2,000, all expenses paid. So if you're interested, you'll have to send a headshot and a 60-second video about why you'd be the perfect choice. You also have to send links to all your social media pages, so make sure you tidy them up beforehand. The deadline for entries is March 31st. And this is the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephania Cox at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, it's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.